fictional story inspired by public figures. This is an original work of fiction and does not describe real events. The city shimmered beneath the golden light of a late summer evening. Istanbul was alive with music, laughter, and the quiet promise that every sunset carried. Along the Bosphorus, the breeze danced gently through the streets as people hurried toward cafes, theaters, and waterfront restaurants. Barış stood alone on a quiet balcony overlooking the water. After years of success, interviews, and endless filming schedules, he had become accustomed to busy days and quiet nights. Fame had given him unforgettable memories, but it had also taught him that genuine connections were rare. That evening, however, something felt different. Across the venue, a charity gala was bringing together artists, musicians, and filmmakers from around the country. The atmosphere was elegant but relaxed, filled with warm conversations instead of flashing cameras. When Barış entered the ballroom, applause echoed for the evening's organizers. Crystal lights reflected across polished floors while a small orchestra played soft instrumental melodies. Then he noticed her. Elçin stood near a large window, speaking with several young actors who admired her work. She smiled naturally, making everyone around her feel comfortable. It wasn't the spotlight that drew attention to her, it was the kindness in the way she listened. For a brief moment, the crowded room seemed quieter. Their eyes met. Neither of them hurried toward the other. Instead, they exchanged a simple smile. Sometimes, the smallest moments leave the biggest impression. Later that evening, they found themselves standing beside the same display of paintings created by young artists. Without realizing it, they began discussing colors, storytelling, and how every painting seemed to hold a secret waiting to be discovered. "I think every picture has a story," Elçin said. Barış nodded. "And every story changes depending on who's looking at it." She smiled. "I like that." The conversation continued effortlessly. There were no awkward silences. No need to impress one another. They talked about books they enjoyed, places they hoped to visit, and the simple happiness of watching sunsets without checking a phone every few minutes. Hours passed almost unnoticed. When the event ended, guests slowly made their way outside. The city lights reflected across the Bosphorus like thousands of tiny stars. As they walked toward the exit, Barış looked toward the water. "I've lived here for years," he said softly, "but evenings like this still surprise me." Elçin looked at the glowing skyline. "Maybe beautiful places only become unforgettable when you share them with someone." Her words lingered in the air. Neither of them answered immediately. Sometimes silence says more than conversation ever could. Over the following weeks, they crossed paths again during film festivals, cultural events, and charity projects. Each meeting felt surprisingly natural. Instead of discussing work, they found themselves talking about ordinary things. Favorite cafes. Family traditions. Old songs that reminded them of childhood. Books that changed the way they viewed life. The more they talked, the easier it became to forget that cameras often followed their every move. One afternoon, they visited a small neighborhood bookstore after attending a local art exhibition. The owner recognized them but chose not to interrupt. Instead, he quietly recommended several novels before returning to arrange shelves. "I love places like this," Elçin whispered. "They remind us that the world is still peaceful somewhere." Barış picked up a classic novel. "You can learn a lot about people by seeing which books they choose." She laughed. "So what does this one say about you?" He smiled. "That I'm still searching for stories worth remembering." She looked at him thoughtfully. "I think everyone is." Outside, light rain began to fall. Instead of calling for a car, they shared one umbrella as they walked through narrow streets lined with colorful cafes. The rain wasn't heavy. It only made the city feel quieter. Children laughed while jumping across puddles. Street musicians continued playing beneath small awnings. An elderly couple walked hand in hand, smiling despite the weather. "It's funny," Elçin said. "People spend so much time waiting for perfect days. And I think moments like this are already perfect." Barış looked around. She was right. Nothing extraordinary was happening. Yet somehow, everything felt unforgettable. As autumn arrived, rumors naturally began spreading online. Fans noticed they attended several public events around the same time. Photos appeared. Articles followed. Speculation filled social media. Some headlines exaggerated every interaction. Others invented stories that had never happened. Neither Barış nor Elçin responded. Instead, they continued focusing on their work while quietly supporting charitable projects together whenever possible. One evening, after finishing another event promoting children's education, they walked toward the waterfront once again. The sky was painted with shades of orange and purple. Boats drifted peacefully across the water. "I've been thinking," Barış said. "About what?" "People always expect grand moments." She waited. "But maybe the best stories begin with ordinary conversations." Elçin smiled warmly. "I believe they do." Nearby, a young street artist painted the sunset on a large canvas. Tourists gathered to watch. Children clapped after every brushstroke. The artist wasn't painting famous people. He was painting happiness. Barış noticed something written on the corner of the canvas. "The heart remembers what the eyes almost missed." He read the words aloud. Elçin looked at the painting. "I like that." "So do I." The evening breeze carried the scent of the sea as the first stars slowly appeared above Istanbul. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. Life was unpredictable. Careers changed. Opportunities came and went. But one thing had become clear. Some friendships arrive quietly and leave lasting memories. And sometimes, the strongest connections begin not with dramatic declarations, but with simple conversations, shared laughter, and moments that feel timeless. Far away, the city continued glowing beneath the night sky. Unaware of it, countless people would soon begin talking about two familiar faces whose kindness, respect, and natural chemistry seemed to inspire everyone around them. Little did they know that this was only the beginning of a story that, in this fictional tale, would one day become known as the love that stole every heart. Fictional story inspired by public figures. This is an original work of fiction and does not describe real events. Morning sunlight spread across Istanbul, turning the Bosphorus into a ribbon of shimmering gold. The city awakened slowly, with ferries crossing the water, cafes filling with early visitors, and streets echoing with the sounds of a new day. Barış arrived at a small waterfront cafe carrying a notebook instead of his usual work bag. He had discovered that writing down thoughts helped him slow the pace of life. Success often demanded constant movement, but quiet moments allowed him to appreciate the journey. A few minutes later, Elçin appeared with a warm smile. "I hope I didn't keep you waiting," she said. "Not at all," Barış replied. "The view kept me company." They chose a table beside the water, where seagulls drifted overhead and soft waves touched the shore. There were no cameras, no interviews, and no schedules to follow, only two friends enjoying a peaceful morning. Their conversation wandered from favorite travel destinations to childhood dreams. They laughed over funny memories from their first acting auditions, remembering how uncertain they had once felt. "It's strange," Elçin said, stirring her coffee. "When you're young, you think success will answer every question. And later?" Barış asked. "You realize it only gives you different questions." He smiled. "I've been learning the same lesson." Hours passed unnoticed. When they finally stood to leave, the cafe owner thanked them for visiting without asking for photos or publicity. Instead, he wished them happiness and safe travels. That simple kindness stayed with them long after they walked away. A few weeks later, both actors accepted invitations to participate in a charity event supporting children's libraries across Turkey. Volunteers packed books into colorful boxes while families gathered for storytelling sessions. Barış spent most of the afternoon reading adventure stories to children. Across the room, Elçin helped young readers choose books that matched their interests. One little girl approached them shyly. "Can you both sign my favorite book?" she asked. "Of course," Elçin answered gently. After signing it, Barış handed the book back. "Promise us one thing." "What?" "Keep reading. Every book is another adventure." The little girl nodded happily before running back to her family. Watching her leave, Elçin smiled. "Moments like this remind me why stories matter." "They give people hope," Barış replied. "And hope is something everyone deserves." As autumn deepened, colorful leaves covered the parks and sidewalks. The city seemed calmer, wrapped in golden shades that matched the changing season. One afternoon, they decided to visit a quiet hill overlooking Istanbul. The climb was peaceful. Neither hurried. They stopped occasionally to admire the view or photograph old buildings hidden among trees. At the top, the city stretched endlessly beneath them. Ships crossed the Bosphorus like tiny white dots. The skyline blended history and modern life into one unforgettable picture. "I never get tired of this view," Elçin whispered. Barış looked across the horizon. "Neither do I." They sat on a wooden bench in comfortable silence. Sometimes, words were unnecessary. Nearby, an elderly artist painted the landscape on a large canvas. His brush moved slowly, capturing not only the buildings but also the warm feeling of the afternoon. When he finished, he smiled at them. "Beautiful places become even more beautiful when shared," he said before continuing his work. The sentence stayed with both of them. Meanwhile, fans around the world continued discussing every public appearance. Photos from the charity event spread across social media. Many admired the kindness they showed toward children and local communities. Others simply appreciated seeing two respected actors supporting meaningful causes. Neither Barış nor Elçin paid much attention to online speculation. Instead, they focused on living each day honestly. One evening, they attended a cultural festival celebrating music, literature, and traditional art. Colorful lanterns decorated the streets. Musicians played gentle melodies while local artists displayed handmade crafts. As they walked through the festival, they stopped to watch a young violinist performing beside an old stone fountain. The music was beautiful. People gathered quietly around the performer. Without speaking, Barış and Elçin listened until the final note faded into the evening air. The audience applauded warmly. "It reminds me," Barış said softly, "that the simplest performances often leave the strongest memories." Elçin nodded. "Because they're real." Later that night, they wandered toward the waterfront once again. The city lights reflected across the calm water like scattered diamonds. A gentle breeze carried the scent of the sea. They leaned against the railing, watching ferries glide through the darkness. "Do you ever wonder where life is taking us?" Elçin asked. "Sometimes." "And?" Barış smiled thoughtfully. "I've stopped trying to predict everything." She looked at him. "I think that's wise. Some of the best chapters happen when we don't expect them." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt peaceful rather than awkward. Nearby, a street musician began playing a soft melody on an acoustic guitar. Couples danced slowly under strings of glowing lights. Children laughed while chasing bubbles floating through the night air. The entire scene felt almost timeless. Elçin turned toward Barış. "Promise me something." "What is it?" "No matter where life leads us, let's never lose the ability to enjoy simple moments like this." He smiled warmly. I promise." High above them, stars slowly appeared between drifting clouds. The city continued its endless rhythm, unaware that two ordinary conversations had quietly grown into a friendship built on trust, kindness, and shared dreams. Neither of them realized that an even greater journey was waiting just ahead, a journey that would test their courage, strengthen their bond, and reveal whether a connection built on friendship could truly become something unforgettable.